Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Horizon's Edge and watched the stars through the main window. The ship was 3 months into a routine mapping mission in the outer regions of human space when something strange happened. The communication system started making sounds that no one had heard before. Danny Walsh, the communications officer, looked confused as he worked at his station. He was a young man with quick fingers and an even quicker mind when it came to fixing broken equipment. "Captain, we're getting a signal, but it's not from Earth or any of our colonies," he said while adjusting different controls. Dr. Lisa Cameron walked over from her science station. She was the ship's expert on alien life and had spent years studying the possibility of other intelligent species in the galaxy. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her eyes showed excitement mixed with worry. "The signal pattern is too complex to be natural," she told the captain. "This has to be from an intelligent source." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Humanity had been exploring space for over 200 years, but had never found proof of other intelligent life. Earth's scientists had theories and hopes, but no real evidence until now. "Can you translate it, Danny?" The young officer worked for several minutes before shaking his head. "It's way beyond anything I've seen before, sir. The language patterns are completely alien, but there's something else. The signal is trying to adapt to our communication systems. It's learning how to talk to us." Commander Alex Rivera, the ship's second-in-command, moved closer to the captain. Alex was a careful person who always thought about dangers before opportunities. "Sir, this could be a trap. We should report to Earth Command and wait for instructions." Before Jake could answer, the main screen flickered and changed. Strange symbols appeared and slowly transformed into words that everyone could read. The translation was not perfect, but the meaning was clear enough to understand. "Greetings to the species called humans. You have been selected to participate in the arena of worlds. This is an honor given to few civilizations. The strongest and most worthy species in this galaxy compete to prove their abilities. Your planet Earth has been watched and judged suitable for this invitation." Lisa read the message again and looked amazed. "They've been watching us. How long? How much do they know about humanity?" The message continued to change and show new information. "The arena of worlds is an ancient tradition. Many species compete in challenges that test physical strength, mental ability, and technological skill. The winning species gains great honor and benefits. The tournament will begin in 30 Earth days on the planet Xerion Prime." Danny's station beeped with new information. "Captain, they're sending coordinates and travel instructions. There's also a list of other participating species." He paused, and his face showed concern. "Sir, there are 12 different alien races, listed here. Names like the Korath Empire, the Zephyrian Collective, and something called the Ethereal Consciousness." Jake felt the weight of the decision ahead of him. This was bigger than anything humanity had ever faced. "What else does the message say about the competition?" Lisa continued reading from the screen. "Each species can send up to 5 representatives. The challenges will test different abilities over several phases: physical trials, mental puzzles, and technological problems. The winners become part of something called the Galactic Council." Alex crossed his arms and frowned. "This sounds too good to be true, sir. Why would they invite us? If they've been watching Earth, they know we're not the most advanced species. Our technology is basic compared to what these aliens probably have." The question made everyone think. Jake had spent 20 years in space exploration and had learned to trust his instincts. Something about this felt important, not dangerous. Maybe that's exactly why they invited us. Maybe they want to see what humans can do. Kate Phillips, the ship's engineer, had been quietly listening to everything. She was a practical woman who could fix anything mechanical and had a talent for solving problems with limited resources. "Captain, if we're going to do this, we need to think about who goes. This isn't just about representing humanity. It's about proving we belong among the stars." The crew spent the next several hours discussing the message and its implications. They learned that the tournament had been happening for thousands of years, and that winning species gained access to advanced technology and trade opportunities. Losing species often found themselves ignored or worse by the galactic community. Danny received another message with more details about Xerion Prime and the other participants. The Korath were described as a military empire that valued strength above all else. The Zephyrians were masters of technology and energy manipulation. The Ethereals were an ancient race with powerful mental abilities. Jake made his decision. "We're going to accept this invitation. Alex, send a message to Earth Command and tell them what's happening. Lisa, I want you to study everything we can learn about these alien species. Kate, start working on equipment modifications that might help us in unknown situations. Danny, keep monitoring for more messages." As the Horizon's Edge changed course toward Xerion Prime, Jake looked out at the stars again. Humanity was about to step onto a galactic stage where they would either prove their worth or discover they were not ready for what waited among the stars. Either way, there was no turning back now. The desert planet Carax burned under twin suns as Jake Morrison led his team toward the starting line of the first physical trial. The sand was red like rust, and the air shimmered with heat that made breathing difficult. Around them, representatives from 12 different alien species prepared for the same challenge. Jake looked at his team and felt both pride and worry. Besides himself, he had brought Dr. Lisa Cameron for her scientific knowledge, Kate Phillips for her engineering skills, Danny Walsh for his communication abilities, and Ryan Brooks, their tactical specialist. Ryan was a former military officer who understood strategy and combat better than anyone else on the ship. The Korath team stood nearby, and Jake could not help but stare. They were massive creatures, each one nearly 8 feet tall with thick gray skin and muscles that looked like they could crush metal. Their leader, a warrior called Thax, looked at the humans and made a sound that might have been laughter. "The soft little mammals think they can compete," Thax said in perfect English. His voice was deep and rough like grinding stone. "This will be entertaining to watch." On the other side of the starting area, the Zephyrian team checked their energy-based equipment. They looked almost human, but their skin had a blue tint, and their eyes glowed with inner light. They wore sleek armor that hummed with power and carried weapons that seemed to bend light around them. The Ethereals were the strangest of all. They appeared to be tall, thin beings covered in flowing robes, but Jake could never quite focus on their faces. When he tried to look directly at them, his mind felt fuzzy and confused. Lisa had warned him that they had powerful mental abilities. A loud horn sounded across the desert, and a voice spoke in everyone's mind rather than through their ears. The tournament judges were explaining the first trial. Each team had to cross 20 miles of desert while carrying heavy supply packs. Along the way, they would face creatures that lived in the sand and rock formations that could be deadly traps. The rules were simple but harsh. Teams could help their own members, but attacking other teams would result in immediate disqualification. Anyone who could not finish would be left behind. The first 3 teams to reach the end would gain points toward the final competition. When the starting signal came, the Korath team charged forward with their superior strength. They carried the heavy packs like they weighed nothing, and their thick skin protected them from the burning sand. The Zephyrians activated energy shields and moved at a steady pace while their technology scanned for dangers ahead. The human team started more slowly, and Jake quickly realized they needed a different approach. "We can't match their strength or technology," he told his team, "but we can be smarter about this." Kate examined their supply packs and found ways to distribute the weight more efficiently. She attached extra straps and padding that made carrying easier. Ryan studied the terrain and planned a route that would use natural shade and avoid the most dangerous areas. After 2 hours of walking, they encountered their first creature. It looked like a giant worm with rows of sharp teeth and erupted from the sand directly in front of the Zephyrian team. The aliens' energy weapons quickly killed it, but more worms appeared, drawn by the noise and energy signatures. Ryan immediately understood the pattern. The creatures are attracted to loud sounds and energy use, he told his team. We need to move quietly and avoid using anything electronic. The human team carefully picked their way around the worm nest, while other teams fought their way through. The Korath simply smashed every creature that attacked them. The ethereals seemed to make the worms ignore them completely, probably using their mental powers. By the 4th hour, the real test began. Lisa suddenly stumbled and cried out in pain. A small but venomous creature had bitten her leg and she could barely walk. The poison was not deadly, but it would slow her down significantly. Jake faced a choice that would define how other species saw humanity. He could leave Lisa behind and continue with 4 team members, which would give them a better chance to finish in the top 3. Or he could slow down the entire team to help her. We don't leave anyone behind, Jake said firmly. Kate and Danny immediately moved to support Lisa while Ryan scouted ahead for the safest path. This decision puzzled the alien teams who were monitoring the human progress. The Korath considered it weakness. The Zephyrians saw it as inefficient. Even the ethereals seemed confused by the choice to sacrifice advantage for loyalty. But the decision led to an unexpected discovery. Moving more slowly forced the humans to notice things that faster teams missed. Kate found a series of underground tunnels that ancient creatures had carved through the rock. The tunnels were cooler and provided protection from both the sun and the sandworms. Using the tunnels, the human team actually gained time on some of their competitors. Lisa's scientific knowledge helped them identify which passages were safe and which might collapse. Danny's communication skills helped coordinate their movement through the narrow spaces. When they emerged from the tunnel system, they were only 2 miles from the finish line and had moved into 4th place. Ahead of them, the Korath team was struggling with a group of flying creatures that attacked anything that moved in the open. The Zephyrians were trapped in an energy feedback loop that their own shields were causing. Ryan saw the opportunity and led his team through a series of quick movements that avoided both the flying creatures and the energy disturbance. They passed 2 alien teams in the final mile and crossed the finish line in 2nd place, right behind the ethereals. The judges announced the results, and Jake could see surprise on many alien faces. No one had expected the humans to finish so well in their first trial. More importantly, they had done it while helping an injured team member instead of abandoning her. That evening, as the teams prepared for the next day's individual combat trials, Jake noticed something interesting. Several alien competitors approached his team with questions about human tactics and teamwork. The Korath still showed only contempt, but others seemed curious about these strange mammals who helped each other instead of competing. Lisa's leg was healing well, and she would be ready for the mental challenges that were coming later. Kate had ideas for modifying their equipment based on what they had learned about the alien technology. Danny had been listening to alien communications and learning about their different fighting styles, but it was Ryan who would face the greatest test tomorrow. The individual combat trials would pit one member from each team against opponents who had natural advantages in strength, speed, or mental power. Ryan had volunteered for this challenge, knowing that it might be the most dangerous thing any human had ever attempted. As Jake looked up at the alien stars above Carax, he wondered if they had proven that humans belonged in this competition, or if tomorrow would show the galaxy that humanity was not ready for the challenges that waited. Among the stars, the planet Nexus looked peaceful from orbit, but Lisa Cameron knew that appearances could be deceiving. The world below was covered in silver structures that seemed to shift and change when she was not looking directly at them. This was where the mental trials would take place, and she felt nervous about what they would face. Ryan Brooks was still unconscious in the medical facility, after his combat trial the day before. He had fought bravely against the ethereal warrior, but the aliens' psychic powers had overwhelmed his mind. The doctors said he would recover, but it might take weeks. The human team was now down to 4 members and facing their greatest challenge yet. Jake Morrison gathered his remaining team in their quarters and explained what they had learned about the mental trials. The judges say this test will take place inside something called the probability maze. It's a place where thoughts become real and fears can kill you. Most species send their strongest psychic members for this challenge. Danny Walsh looked worried as he checked his equipment. "Captain, none of us have psychic abilities. How are we supposed to compete against aliens who can read minds and move objects with their thoughts?" Kate Phillips was working on a device she had been building since they arrived. It looked like a combination of scanner and communication equipment. "Maybe we don't need psychic powers. Maybe we need something else." Lisa had been studying the reports from previous tournaments, and she thought she understood what the maze really tested. "I want to volunteer for this trial," she said quietly. "I think I know how to approach it." Jake looked concerned. Lisa was brilliant, but she was also the most cautious member of his team. The maze had driven several alien competitors insane over the years. "Lisa, you don't have to prove anything. We can send someone else." "No, I need to do this." Lisa's voice was steady and determined. "My whole career has been about studying the unknown and finding logical explanations for strange phenomena. This maze might be psychic, but it still has to follow some kind of rules." The next morning, Lisa stood at the entrance to the probability maze along with representatives from 8 other species. The Korath had sent their war chief, believing that mental strength came from an aggressive will. The Zephyrians chose their most advanced technician, someone who could merge their mind with computer systems. The Ethereals sent their high priestess, a being so powerful that reality seemed to bend around her just by standing still. The maze entrance was a simple archway made of the same silver material as the buildings on Nexus. When Lisa stepped through the world changed completely. She found herself in a vast space filled with corridors that stretched in impossible directions. Some hallways went up and down at the same time. Others seemed to fold back on themselves like twisted ribbons. Lisa's first instinct was to panic, but she forced herself to think like a scientist. She pulled out a small notebook and started making observations. The walls of the maze were not really solid. When she touched them, her hand passed through slightly before meeting resistance. The light came from no visible source, but it cast shadows that moved independently of any objects. After 10 minutes of careful study, Lisa began to understand the maze's nature. It was not really a physical place, but a mental construct that responded to the thoughts and emotions of whoever entered it. Fear made the corridors longer and more confusing. Anger created dead ends and false paths. But calm, logical thinking seemed to stabilize the environment. She started walking forward while keeping her mind focused on scientific observation rather than emotional reactions. When a corridor split into 3 directions, she chose the path that felt most neutral rather than the ones that seemed either promising or threatening. When strange creatures appeared in her peripheral vision, she ignored them instead of running or fighting. The key insight came when Lisa realized that the maze was testing problem-solving ability rather than psychic power. The Ethereals and other psychic species had an advantage because they could sense the maze's mental nature, but they also had a weakness. Their psychic abilities made them more susceptible to the maze's illusions and emotional manipulations. Lisa's lack of psychic sensitivity was actually helping her. She could not sense the maze's attempts to influence her emotions, so she remained focused on logical analysis. When the maze showed her visions of her past failures as a scientist, she recognized them as distractions and continued forward. When it created illusions of her teammates in danger, she knew they were not real, because she could detect inconsistencies in the details. Meanwhile, Jake and the rest of the team watched through viewing screens as the other competitors struggled with the maze. The Korath war chief had become lost in a section where his own aggression created increasingly violent obstacles. The Zephyrian technician was trapped in a feedback loop where their advanced mind could not distinguish between the maze's illusions and reality. Even the ethereal priestess was having difficulties. Her psychic powers were so strong that she was actually changing the maze faster than she could navigate it. Every thought and emotion created new pathways and obstacles until she was surrounded by a chaos of her own making. Lisa continued her methodical approach and slowly but steadily moved toward the center of the maze. She discovered that the real challenge was not finding the correct path, but maintaining mental discipline while under psychological pressure. The maze tested whether a being could think clearly when faced with their deepest fears and strongest desires. After 2 hours, Lisa emerged from the maze's center carrying a small crystal that proved she had completed the trial. She was the first competitor to finish, and her time was faster than any previous record. The judges announced her success, and Jake felt incredibly proud of his team member. But the real impact of Lisa's achievement was in how she had accomplished it. The other species had always assumed that psychic power was necessary for the mental trials. Lisa had proven that careful observation, logical thinking, and emotional discipline could be just as effective. She had not overpowered the maze, but had understood it. Later that day, representatives from several alien species approached the human team with questions about Lisa's methods. They wanted to understand how someone without psychic abilities could succeed where their most powerful mental warriors had failed. Lisa patiently explained her scientific approach and her emphasis on staying calm under pressure. Jake realized that humanity was beginning to change how the other species thought about intelligence and problem-solving. The humans were not winning through superior technology or natural abilities. They were succeeding by approaching challenges from unexpected angles and refusing to give up when things became difficult. Kate finished her device that evening and showed it to the team. It was a scanner that could detect energy patterns and structural weaknesses in alien technology. She had built it by combining human engineering principles with observations of the equipment used by other species. Tomorrow's technological trials would test whether human innovation could compete with advanced alien science. As Lisa recovered from her experience in the maze, she told her teammates what she had learned. The key is not to fight the challenge, but to understand it. Every test so far has been about more than just raw ability. They're measuring how we think and how we work together. That might be what really matters in this competition. The space station called Forge hung in the orange glow of a dying star, its metal corridors filled with the hum of advanced technology. Kate Phillips walked through the engineering section and felt both excitement and intimidation. This was where the technological trials would take place, and the equipment around her was more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. Jake Morrison led his team through the station's main corridor while alien competitors prepared their workstations. The Zephyrians had brought crystalline devices that pulsed with energy. The Korath carried massive tools that looked like they could reshape metal with pure force. Even species that seemed less advanced had technology that made human equipment look primitive. Danny Walsh was recording everything he could see while trying not to appear too obvious about it. Captain, some of this technology is thousands of years ahead of what we have on Earth. How are we supposed to compete with that? Kate adjusted the scanner she had built and smiled slightly. Maybe we're not supposed to compete with their technology. Maybe we're supposed to show them something different. The first technological challenge was announced by the station's computer system. Each team had 4 hours to build a communication device that could send a message through the energy field surrounding the dying star. The field disrupted normal communication methods and required creative solutions to penetrate. The Zephyrians immediately began assembling a complex array of crystals and energy manipulators. Their device was beautiful and precise, with components That seemed to work on principles that humans barely understood. The Korath took a different approach and started building a massive transmitter that would simply overpower the interference through brute force. Kate looked at the pile of salvaged parts and broken equipment that had been provided for the teams to use. While other species focused on building new devices from advanced components, she started examining the discarded materials. Her engineering background had taught her to work with whatever was available rather than waiting for perfect conditions. "What are you doing?" asked Lisa Cameron as she watched Kate sort through what looked like technological garbage. "I'm looking for potential," Kate replied while examining a damaged power coupling. "Every piece of technology has basic principles. Behind it, even alien technology. If I can understand those principles, I can make them work together in new ways." While the other teams focused on their advanced equipment, Kate began building something that looked completely different. She combined a Zephyrian energy crystal with Korath power amplifiers and components from 3 other alien technologies. The result was messy and improvised, but it worked on principles that none of the other teams had considered. Jake watched nervously as the time limit approached. The Zephyrian device was elegant and powerful. The Korath transmitter could probably punch through anything with enough energy. Kate's creation looked like it had been assembled from spare parts in someone's garage. When the testing began, the results surprised everyone. The Zephyrian device worked perfectly under normal conditions, but the star's energy field interfered with their precise crystal matrices. The Korath transmitter had enough power to penetrate the field, but it also created so much interference that the message became unreadable. Kate's improvised device should not have worked at all according to conventional engineering principles. But she had noticed something that the other teams missed. The energy field around the dying star was not random interference. It had patterns and rhythms that could be predicted and used rather than fought against. Her device did not try to overpower the field or work around it. Instead, it synchronized with the field's natural patterns and used them to carry the message. The result was not only successful, but actually cleaner and clearer than what either of the advanced alien devices achieved. The judges announced Kate's victory, and Jake saw expressions of confusion and interest on alien faces throughout the station. The humans had won again, but not through superior technology. They had succeeded by understanding the problem differently and finding an innovative solution. During the break between challenges, Danny made a disturbing discovery while monitoring the station's communication systems. He found encrypted messages between some of the tournament organizers that revealed troubling information about the competition's true purpose. "Captain, you need to see this," Danny said quietly as he showed Jake the decoded transmissions. "The tournament isn't just about prestige. The winning species gets access to something called the Archive, which contains technology from a civilization that disappeared millions of years ago." Jake studied the information and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. What happens to the losing species? According to these messages, they become second-class members of the galactic community. Limited trade rights, restricted territory, no voice in major decisions. Some species that lost in previous tournaments were conquered within decades because they couldn't defend themselves without access to advanced technology. Lisa joined their quiet discussion, and her face showed concern. "That means this competition isn't just representing humanity. We're literally fighting for Earth's future independence. If we lose, our entire species could end up enslaved or eliminated." The second technological challenge was more complex and required teams to work together on a project that would test their ability to integrate different technologies. Each team had to contribute components to a collective defense system that would protect the station from solar radiation as they moved closer to the dying star. Kate realized this was an opportunity to demonstrate something that humans understood better than most alien species. While the other teams focused on making their individual contributions as advanced as possible, she approached the Zephyrian and Korath engineers with suggestions for how their technologies could work together more effectively. The aliens were initially suspicious of human suggestions, but Kate's successful communication device had earned her some respect. She showed them how Korath power systems could be regulated by Zephyrian control crystals to create more stable energy output. She demonstrated how human adaptive programming could help different alien technologies interface with each other. The result was a defense system that was more effective than the sum of its parts. Each species' technology was enhanced by working in combination with others rather than operating independently. The system successfully protected the station from increasingly dangerous solar radiation as they approached the star. But Kate's real achievement was in showing the alien competitors that cooperation could produce better results than competition. Several species began talking to each other about their technologies and methods instead of guarding their secrets jealously. Jake watched these interactions and realized that humanity was accidentally teaching the galaxy something important about working together. The humans were not trying to dominate or prove their superiority. They were showing other species that sharing knowledge and cooperating could benefit everyone. That evening, as the teams prepared for the next phase of competition, Jake received a private communication from an unexpected source. It was from Thax, the Korath war chief who had been so dismissive of humanity at the beginning of the tournament. "Human captain," the message said, "my people value strength above all else. We thought this meant physical power and military might. Your team has shown us that there are different kinds of strength. The strength to help others, the strength to find new solutions, the strength to bring different peoples together. These are not weaknesses as we believed. They are powers that we do not possess." Jake realized that the tournament was changing more than just humanity's place in the galaxy. It was changing how different species understood strength, intelligence, and the value of cooperation. The humans who could not be defeated were winning not through conquest, but through connection. Tomorrow would bring the final challenges, and Jake knew that the real test was still ahead. But for the first time since the tournament began, he felt confident that his team was ready for whatever the galaxy could throw at them. Alarms screamed throughout the Forge station as Jake Morrison ran toward the command center with his team close behind. The dying star outside had suddenly become unstable and was pulling the station toward its surface with gravitational forces that were growing stronger by the minute. Emergency lights flashed red, and the entire structure shook as metal groaned under impossible stress. The tournament judges had gathered all remaining competitors in the main hall, and their usual calm expressions showed signs of real fear. A tall figure in ceremonial robes stepped forward and addressed the assembled teams. "The final challenge has begun earlier than planned. This is not a simulation or a test scenario. The station is genuinely in danger of falling into the star." Kate Phillips checked her scanner, and the readings made her stomach drop. "Captain, the station's engines are failing, and the orbit is decaying fast. At this rate, we have maybe 6 hours before we hit the star's corona." Lisa Cameron was studying the technical displays around the command center, and her scientific training helped her understand the scope of the problem. "The gravitational stress is tearing apart the station's structural supports. Even if we fix the engines, the framework might not hold together long enough to escape." Danny Walsh monitored communications as panic spread through different alien teams. The Korath were arguing about who should take command of the situation. The Zephyrians were trying to use their technology to analyze the problem, but their systems were overloading from the radiation. Several smaller species seemed paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. The head judge's voice cut through the chaos with an announcement that changed everything. "The final trial of this tournament is cooperation, under crisis. All teams must work together to save the station and everyone aboard it. Individual species achievements will not matter if we all die today." Jake realized this was exactly the kind of challenge that humans might be uniquely suited for. Throughout history, humanity's greatest achievements had come from working together during emergencies. Natural disasters, wars, and exploration missions had taught humans how to cooperate when survival was at stake. "Listen up, everyone," Jake called out to the assembled alien competitors. "We need to organize this rescue effort efficiently. Kate, what's the biggest problem we need to solve first?" Kate consulted her scanner and the station's engineering. Displays. "The main engines are offline because the power distribution system is overloaded. But even if we restore power, the hull breaches are causing atmospheric loss faster than the life support systems can compensate." Thax, the Korath war chief, stepped forward with his massive frame towering over the other competitors. "My people are strong. We can seal hull breaches with manual repairs if someone can guide us to the damaged sections." The Zephyrian team. Leader, a being called Nexus, whose skin glowed with soft blue light, added their resources to the effort. "Our energy manipulation technology can reroute power around damaged systems. But we need detailed information about the station's layout and power grid." Lisa immediately saw how the pieces could fit together. "I can analyze the station's structural damage and create a priority list for repairs. The ethereals could use their mental abilities to coordinate communications between different repair teams since normal comm systems are failing." Even the ethereal priestess, who had seemed distant and superior throughout the tournament, agreed to help. Her mental voice spoke directly into everyone's mind with clarity that cut through the noise and confusion. "We will provide mental communication links between all teams, but success requires trust between species that have been enemies for generations." Jake took charge of organizing the rescue effort because his experience as a starship captain had prepared him for exactly this kind of crisis management. He assigned teams to different critical tasks while keeping track of overall progress and resource allocation. Danny coordinated information flow between different groups and his communication. Skills proved essential for keeping everyone informed about changing conditions. Kate led a mixed team of engineers from different species to restore power and propulsion systems. Lisa worked with scientists from multiple civilizations to calculate structural repairs and predict the station's behavior as it fell toward the star. The work was dangerous and difficult, but something amazing happened as the different species began cooperating. The Korath's physical strength was enhanced by Zephyrian energy tools. Human problem-solving abilities were amplified by ethereal mental coordination. Each species contributed their unique advantages while covering for others' weaknesses. After 3 hours of intense work, they had made significant progress, but the station was still falling toward the star and time was running out. Kate's engineering team had restored partial power, but the main engines still would not start. The hull breaches were sealed, but atmospheric pressure was dangerously low. That was when Danny made a discovery that changed everything. While monitoring the station's computer systems, he found evidence that the crisis was not entirely natural. "Captain, someone has been sabotaging the station's systems." The engine failures and hull breaches were caused by planted explosive devices, not just gravitational stress. Jake felt anger and betrayal, but forced himself to focus on the immediate problem. Who would do this and why? Lisa examined the evidence, and her scientific analysis revealed a disturbing pattern. The sabotage was designed to create exactly this kind of crisis scenario. Someone wanted to force all the tournament competitors to work together under life-or-death pressure. The ethereal priestess used her mental abilities to scan the minds of everyone present, and her mental voice carried shock and realization. The tournament organizers themselves arranged this crisis. They have been testing not just individual species' abilities, but our capacity for cooperation when survival depends on it. Jake realized that the entire tournament had been building toward this moment. The physical trials tested individual strengths and weaknesses. The mental challenges examined problem-solving abilities under pressure. The technological trials demonstrated innovation and adaptation. But this final test was about something more important than any individual capability. With less than 2 hours remaining before the station would hit the star's corona, Jake made a decision that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Instead of being angry about the deception, he focused everyone's attention on completing the rescue mission. "It doesn't matter why this is happening," he announced to all the teams. "What matters is that we're all here together, and we can either save each other or die together. I vote for saving each other." Kate's team finally managed to restart the main engines, but they needed coordinated effort from every species to execute the escape maneuver successfully. The Korath manually adjusted thruster angles that machines could not reach. The Zephyrians provided precise energy control for the engine startup sequence. The Ethereals coordinated split-second timing between dozens of different actions. And the humans provided the leadership and coordination that held everything together when the plan seemed impossible and time was running out. Jake's crisis management experience kept teams focused on solutions rather than problems. Kate's engineering knowledge helped integrate different alien technologies. Lisa's scientific analysis provided accurate predictions about what would work. As the station's engines fired and began pulling them away from the dying star, every species cheered in their own way. They had not just saved their own lives, but had discovered something that none of them could achieve alone. The power of different civilizations working together was greater than the sum of their individual abilities. But Jake knew that the real test was just beginning. The tournament organizers had revealed their true purpose, and now the competitors would learn what this had all been leading toward. The Forge station drifted safely away from the dying star as Jake Morrison stood in the main hall with representatives from all the surviving species. The crisis had ended, but everyone sensed that something much larger was about to be revealed. The tournament judges had gathered in the center of the room, and their ceremonial robes seemed to shimmer with energy that had not been visible before. The head judge raised one hand, and the air around the judges began to change. Their forms shifted and became taller, more ethereal, with features that seemed ancient beyond measure. When the transformation was complete, beings of incredible power and wisdom stood before the assembled competitors. "We are the architects," the lead figure announced in a voice that seemed to resonate from everywhere at once. "We created this tournament long ago as a test, but not the kind of test you believed you were taking." Lisa Cameron felt her scientific mind racing as she tried to understand what they were seeing. The technology required to disguise an entire species and manipulate reality on this scale was beyond anything she had imagined possible. "How long have you been watching us?" "We have observed this galaxy for millions of years," another architect replied. "We have seen countless civilizations rise and fall. Some destroyed themselves through war and hatred. Others stagnated and faded into irrelevance. Very few learned the secret that would allow them to survive what is coming." Danny Walsh stepped forward with the communication skills that had served him throughout the tournament. "What's coming? What are you preparing us for?" The architects gestured, and the air above them filled with images that showed vast spaces between galaxies. In the darkness, something moved, shapes that seemed to consume light itself and left emptiness behind wherever they passed. Beyond the edges of this galaxy, entities exist that view all matter and energy as resources to be consumed. They have already devoured hundreds of galaxies, and they are approaching this one. Kate Phillips studied the images with her engineer's eye for detail, and what she saw made her understand the true scope of the threat. "Those things are bigger than entire star systems. How could anyone fight something like that?" "Individual species cannot," the first architect explained. "Even the most advanced civilizations are helpless against the devourers when they stand alone. But when different species learn to combine their unique strengths and work together, they become something greater than the sum of their parts." Jake began to understand the real purpose of everything they had experienced. The tournament was never about finding the strongest species. You were looking for ones who could teach cooperation to others. "Precisely," the architect confirmed. "For generations, we have tested different species through the arena of worlds. Most focused only on proving their own superiority. They won, individual challenges, but failed the ultimate test of working together with former enemies. Thax, the Korath war chief, spoke with a humility that would have been impossible when the tournament began. My people have always believed that strength meant standing alone and dominating others. The humans showed us that true strength comes from lifting others up instead of pushing them down. The Zephyrian team leader Nexus agreed with an acknowledgement that surprised everyone. Our technology has always been our pride, but we learned that innovation means more than just building better machines. It means finding new ways for different minds to work together. Even the ethereal priestess, whose mental powers had seemed to set her species apart from all others, admitted that the tournament had changed her understanding. We believed our psychic abilities made us superior to physical beings, but we discovered that mental power without wisdom and compassion is ultimately empty. The architects listened to these admissions with what might have been satisfaction if such ancient beings could feel simple emotions. The Devourers will arrive in this galaxy within 50 years. That is enough time to prepare if the different species can truly learn to work as one civilization instead of dozens of competing factions. Lisa raised the question that was bothering her scientific mind. Why humans? What made our species the key to this cooperation? Humans are not the strongest or most advanced species, the architect replied. But you have something that is rarer and more valuable. You have the ability to see potential in others and the willingness to sacrifice your own advantage to help them succeed. This is what makes cooperation possible. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders, but also a sense of hope that he had not expected. What happens now? How do we prepare the galaxy for this threat? The architects began to fade as their true forms became visible. They were beings of pure energy and thought, so advanced that physical reality was just one of many dimensions they could inhabit. We will provide technology and knowledge to all species equally, but only if they agree to work together as a galactic alliance rather than separate empires. The humans will not lead this alliance, another architect continued, because leadership, based on superiority, always fails. Instead, you will be facilitators, teachers, and bridges between different ways of thinking. Kate realized what this meant for her own future and for humanity as a whole. You want us to help other species learn cooperation the way we helped during the crisis. Not just help them learn, the final architect said, as the beings prepared to depart for whatever realm they normally inhabited. You must become the living example of what galactic civilization can achieve when differences become strengths instead of sources of conflict. As the architects disappeared, leaving behind technology and knowledge that would transform the galaxy, Jake looked around at the alien competitors who had become something more like colleagues and friends. The tournament had ended, but the real work was just beginning. Ryan Brooks had recovered from his injuries and rejoined the team just in time to help plan humanity's new role in galactic affairs. The 5 humans who had come to prove their worth in combat had instead become ambassadors for a new way of thinking about strength and success. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of a new space station that orbited Earth. Representatives from dozens of species came to the Sol system to learn about human methods of cooperation and conflict resolution. The station was not just a diplomatic center, but a school where young beings from across the galaxy learned to work together. Lisa had become the director of the Galactic Scientific Cooperation Initiative, helping different species share knowledge and research instead of hoarding secrets. Kate led engineering teams that combined the best technologies from multiple civilizations to create innovations that none could achieve alone. Danny established the Interspecies Communication Institute, where translators and diplomats learned not just alien languages, but how to build understanding between completely different ways of thinking. Ryan helped train security forces from different species to work together against common threats instead of preparing for war against each other. The humans no one could defeat had won the most important victory of all. They had not conquered their enemies, but had turned them into allies. They had not proven human superiority, but had shown that every species had something valuable to contribute to the galaxy's future. As Jake watched ships from dozens of different civilizations docking at the station, he knew that the real test was still ahead. The Devourers were coming, and the galaxy would need every species working together to have any hope of survival. But for the first time in galactic history, that kind of cooperation seemed possible. The arena of worlds had ended, but the Age of Unity was just beginning.